Welcome to session 2. We call this the meat and potatoes part 1 session, or actually the nuts and bolts part 1, because what we're going to be doing today is really getting into the details of crafting a budget and what that really means and what that really looks like. So, here right away, today's outline. We are going to do our homework check and a little review of some of the stuff we looked at last class period. Today is all going to be about expense prioritization, needs versus wants, and how that works. We'll talk a little bit about irregular expenses, those things that don't show up every month, but maybe show up 1 or 2 or 3 times a year, and how we plan for those with something called sinking funds. And then we have, of course, a homework assignment. So, interesting facts before we get started. In a Gallup poll in 2013, only 33% of Americans do a detailed budget and follow it. 2 key components. You can do budgets from now until doomsday. If you don't do what it says, what's the point? You wasted your time and you killed a tree with a piece of paper that was wasted. You got to do it, okay? You got to stick with it. Now that doesn't mean we're always going to be perfect with it, okay? Please understand that. This is a messy process, especially if you've never done a real legitimate budget before. My wife and I started budgeting for real in 2008. Now before 2008, we budgeted up here. Right? Yeah, it's all up here. I know what I spend, and I know where it goes. Yeah, okay, whatever. That was funny. And so we started doing real pencil and paper budgets in 2008. For the first 3 months, we were all over the place. We blew every category just out of the water. It was a mess. But that was okay, because guess what? We learned from it. We got better at it. It's okay to absolutely fail at your first budget, as long as you keep doing it. Remember, we're going to do this every month from now to the rest of our lives. Time Magazine Reader Poll 2015 says 2 of 3 American households can't, I threw in the word won't, stick to a budget. I think we all can stick to a budget. I think we can. It's just that we won't. We make excuses, we get tired, we get beat up by life, and so for whatever reason you want to fill in the blank, we just don't do it. I think we can do it. 7 out of 10 households have less than $1,000 in a savings account. That blows my mind. 7 out of 10 households, less than $1,000. So you know what that means? The minute something goes wrong that costs more than that amount, they're whipping out the credit card. They're taking out a loan on their home. They're borrowing from a buddy or something. They're continually going into the hole. And that's not a look that we want to have as responsible financial stewards. Okay? And then here's another scary thing we're not going to talk too much about, but just to kind of give you an idea what's going on out there. Only 1 of 3 adults, one of 3 adults have no retirement savings. Nothing, not a single dollar. What's their plan? Count on the government, right? They're great managers of money, aren't they?
Scary.
The government's great at managing money.
Hey, Sid.
Yo.
That was in 2013. Do you think it's gotten better or worse now that we're almost to 2018?
That's an absolutely great question, because when you think about it, 2013, what's going on? What happened 4 years prior? Anybody remember 2009?
Financial meltdown.
Recession.
The crash that was the biggest since the Great Depression, we were told. I looked for more interesting, more updated information. I could not find anything really reliable. This I found corroborated on 3 different sources. If I can find 3 different sources, I call it legit. It may be different now. I would hope it's different now. I really would. Fact. Our lack of commitment to budgeting is destroying our ability to give and save. In the list of questions that were submitted last time, we're going to cover those mostly next session, but one in particular stuck out. Someone wrote, when does over-saving go from being prepared to being greedy? I thought that was a wonderful question. That's one we're going to talk about a little bit today when we talk about expense prioritization. But let's just take a look at the Word of God really quick here and see what it teaches us. Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. We just saw on the past slide, there's a lot of people out there who do not have a vision. We as responsible stewards are going to have a vision, have a plan. It's called our budget. That's our plan. That's our vision. This is it right here. The vision is the budget. Okay? The wise man saves for the future, but the foolish man spends whatever he gets. Proverbs 21:20, New Living Translation. I like that translation. It really brings it into the current modern language, but there's many other good translations as well. So, saving, giving, all that. What's our problem with this, right? Everybody familiar with this saying, right? Hang on. Must be doing something wrong here. Cart, horse, yeah, you know. So what's going on here? Well, I'll tell you this. We're spending everything. We're saving nothing. That's the problem. And we're giving nothing. That's why we can't give. And we can't save because we spend it all. So we're going to reverse that today. First thing, let's talk about homework. Did you do it? Did you bring your numbers today? I hope you did. Okay? Again, without hard numbers, it's going to be impossible for this to actually make a difference. You need to have your hard numbers. Okay? So we should have today some expenses. What have you been spending on? Transportation, housing, childcare, education, whatever the things might be. We just need to know what those numbers are. Now those numbers are going to change, probably, I would guess. But for now, we just need to know what they are, so we have a place to start. James 1, 22 and 23. I took this one from the Message because once again, a lot of people I know have a problem with the Message. I like the Message because sometimes it just really puts it out there in a way you can't say, oh, I didn't understand that. It says, don't fool yourself into thinking you are a listener when you are anything but. Letting the word go in one ear and out the other. Act on what you hear. That's what this is all about, acting, and we're going to do that today. So let's talk about income. Let's talk about expenses. For the purposes of this workshop, income is anything that comes in, whether it's your paycheck, whether it's from a retirement account, a pension plan, a Social Security check, alimony, child support, food stamps, I don't care what it is. Anything that comes in that helps you eat, live, and not be naked, that's income, all right? Expenses, what goes out or is set aside for the future. I want us to start thinking about savings in terms of equaling future expenses, right? Because that's why we're saving money. We talked about Scrooge McDuck last week, sitting on his pile of gold, just counting it. That's not why we save. We save because we see an expense in the future. What do we see coming down the road? That little guy right there. What do you think? 18 years, college maybe? A possibility? Something? Maybe not college, maybe trade school? Maybe open a business, right? He's going to need some money, right? So that's a future expense. We're just getting ready for it today instead of waiting until we get there and then freaking out and becoming part of the $1.4 trillion student loan debt problem that's hitting us in the country right now, okay? Maybe a car. We have a car that needs to be replaced, and we think, hey, old Betsy, maybe she'll last me another 3 years. I can kind of limp her along. That's a future expense. All right, here's the thing. Income minus expenses must equal 0, because if it doesn't, we end up in debt. Now, here's a couple good debt verses here. Proverbs 22:7, the borrower is slave to the lender. Romans 13:8 says, if you're going to be in debt at all, in any way, shape, or form, love one another. That's the only debt that God allows us to keep long term. That's the only debt. All right. So, you got your expenses. Now, if you forgot to bring them, I'm going to ask you to ballpark them in your head real fast. Okay? Just think. What do I think I spent last month on? And I want you to come up. Hopefully the scratch sheet of paper has come up. We're going to come up with our top 5 personal expenses. Now, here's what I want you to do first. We're going to make 2 lists. We're going to make a personal list, which is just you on your own. So if it's just you and your accountability partner, you can tear that sheet of paper in half. I want you to write down what you think should be your top 5 expenses. I don't care if they are or they aren't. I want you to put down what you think they should be. If I were going to say, what are my top 5 priorities, what do I think those are? And then here in just a couple minutes, we're going to see what actually are our top priorities. So go ahead and take just a minute or 2 now and do that. Not all of us will have quite the same priorities based on where we are in life. That's why you have to do your budget. Jessica Saunders is a wonderful person. She is a budgeting queen. She is
she's pretty good. She's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I think she has like some sort of financial whip she uses to keep Sean in line.
Yes, she does.
He's a great man of Christ. He's a strong leader. He is a man of Christ who builds up his wife. But you know what? She can't do a budget for me. She can't.
No, that's fine. That's good.
She's got this is not her little one, but she's holding a little one. But they've got a little one in their house right now. Obviously, their priorities are going to be a little bit different than my priorities. Okay.
Yep.
So let's just go around the room here real quick. Top 5.
Well, housing,
Housing.
utilities,
Utilities.
food,
Food.
tithes and offerings.
Tithes and offerings.
And then we had a few different vehicles or basic clothing.
Vehicle,
kinda
clothing.
hodgepodge,
Okay.
those kind of things.
You're going to have a few there. Okay.
Yeah.
In the back. Top 5.
Housing, transportation, food, giving, and then communications, your cell phones and
Oh, communications. These people don't
Electronic.
talk on the phone.
No.
They don't text.
It's a big bill nowadays.
It
It's
is.
a big bill.
Yeah.
It is. In the back, top 5.
Housing,
Housing,
rent or house
rent,
payment,
right? Okay, rent, mortgage.
utilities, tithing, food, and fuel for your vehicles.
Okay. All right, sounds good. And over here,
Housing, food, transportation, utilities, and childcare.
childcare. Ah, one we hadn't heard yet. Childcare. I can't understand why the Showers didn't say childcare is great expense in their house. Because they've already kicked them out. Good for you. You do not own any of the boomerang generation. Hopefully none of them decide, oh, we want to live in your basement forever. No, no, no. All right, so interesting. We found some commonalities. I heard housing coming in top. I heard food coming in top. I heard transportation several times. I heard utilities. Excellent. That's great. There we go. All right, so this was just kind of a little slide I put together. This is for the benefit of the folks who are working online. This is kind of what we just did. We had a personal list and a group list. We took what we thought should be the top 5, and then we compared together what would be our as a group, what we thought would be the top 5. So, now, what I want you to do now is go back to the best of your ability. If you brought your numbers today, or if you're just kind of taking a guess in your head, based on the past 3 months average, what did you actually do? Re-rank them real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Spent the most on number 1, spent the least on number 5. Go ahead and do that real quick here. This is your personal list. Personal list only. You don't have to argue as a group because your numbers are going to be individual. Matthew 6:21. This is my theme for the stewardship team here at Redeemer. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Zig Ziglar, well-known financial motivational speaker, used to use this quote. He did not develop this quote, but he used it a lot. It says, "Show me your checkbook. I will tell you what you value." Show me your checkbook. And another unknown quote that I thought was kind of cool. The checkbook and the calendar never lie, right? God's Word tells us that what we spend our money on shows what our priorities are. It doesn't matter what we put on a piece of paper. It's what we do that shows us what our priorities are. So, let's get our priorities straight. All right. We are going to talk about expense levels here. So let's see here. I'm just going to pass these down here. If you can just take one down and pass it around kind of a thing. 1 per couple is good. You don't need to have 2, but if you want to, please feel free to take 2. If you want to spare, there's plenty of copies coming around. We're going to talk about what we call Tier 1 expenses, or it's also creatively known as the 4 walls. Now, all of you out there can count. I know. And you can probably see that there are actually more than 4 things up here. But what we're talking about here is, if you think about a house, it has to have at least 4 walls, right? Or the whole thing just comes crashing down. It's a big mess. So the 4 walls are these things that we use day to day to keep life moving. These are the things that we pretty much cannot do without. Now, I know Mrs. Schaller is a teacher. You maybe have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is that something that maybe you dust off from the way back when? Okay, I'm seeing some other nods around here, right? There are certain basic things that if we don't have those squared away, it messes everything else up. So we have to do these 4 things first. Number 1, food. And yes, food is number 1. Okay? It might not be number 1 right now, but it is number 1. If you're not eating, you're going to be grouchy. You're going to starve to death eventually. Okay? Now I know someone's going to ding me on that and say, well, you'll actually die of dehydration. Okay, yeah. All right, that's it there. All right? We'll put water.
Water's cheap.
Water is cheap. Cheap. Goodness gracious.
You don't have
buy
to-
that bottled stuff. That was marketing genius, right? Put a penny of water into a bottle, sell it for $2. Genius. I wish I'd come up with that idea. Utilities is number 2. If you're freezing to death, that's also not good. Also not good, okay? Rent, mortgage, real estate taxes, that all comes in under housing, okay? Making sure that you're not getting kicked out of your house or losing your house, that's number 3. Number 4, basic transportation. Underline basic, okay? Basic transportation. Now, we'll get to unbasic transportation here in just a little bit. But we're talking about the 4 walls. You have to be able to get from point A to point B, right? If you've got a job and you can't get to your job, you will be fired very quickly, and then you will not have a job and no money, and then you can't take care of anything, so you've got to get that. Now, how can we get from here to there, right? Got to have a car, right? Who agrees with that statement? Got to have a car.
Moped would be part of it.
I would agree that someone has to have a car.
Can you get a bike?
Do you have to have a car? Maybe, maybe not. Interesting thing. Who here besides me has taken an Uber? An Uber. All right, 1, 2. All right, quick story. Went to a convention up in Cleveland, landlord convention. I do real estate property management on the side. And we got to the airport. It was late at night. We had gotten in an hour and a half late. Plane was circling in the air forever, whatever, blah, blah. And so we didn't really want to wait for the shuttle to come pick us up at the airport and take us to the hotel. It was about a 15-minute round trip, and you know it all takes 15 minutes on that side, and then you got to wait here, and we were just tired. We wanted to go quickly. So my buddy dials up an Uber. The guy comes and picks us up. In 5 minutes, he was there. He picked us up, all of our luggage, all of our baggage. He took us from wherever he started. He got us, then took us to the hotel 15 minutes away. Any guess as to how much the bill was?
$10.
$10.
Plus tip.
$10.27 plus we gave the guy a $10 tip because that was ridiculously cheap. Now, you might say $20, that's kind of steep, but think about this. How many days a week do you drive to work? Or I'm sorry, how many days a month do you drive to work? 20. Let's go 25, let's go high. Multiply 20 times 25. What's your answer? 500. What's the average American car payment today? About 500. 300 to 500 somewhere, depending on how much they stretch it out. You could literally have someone drive you to and from work for the same cost as owning a car. And guess what? You're not having to pay for gas. You're not having to pay for insurance. You're not having to pay personal property taxes. That poor guy who just picked you up and took you for $10, that's the guy paying all that stuff. You can Uber cheaper than owning your own car in some cases. If you live next to a bus, you can take a bus. If somebody in your house, or sorry, rather your neighborhood owns a car, you could carpool. If somebody at your job has a car, you could offer him $10 a day to come pick you up. Lots of options to ensure basic transportation. Now I heard someone say bicycle. Who said bicycle?
I did.
Do you ride a bicycle to work?
No, but I know
All right,
people
then
that
shut
do.
up.
I know people that do.
My husband.
He's a ninja warrior, okay? Yes, you could do a bicycle. We could say, oh, you can walk to work.
You could
Let's
run.
be realistic. This is Missouri. Okay, you walk to work, you come home in a blizzard, right? You walk to work in shorts, you come home, it's a blizzard. It's Missouri. I'm not going to tell you to walk to work, but you might think about moving closer to work. It's a possibility. It's a way to cut down on transportation. We've done that topic to death. Let's move on. Basic clothing. OPT means optional. Nobody here is naked today. That's good. So I would assume you all have basic clothing covered. We're not going to worry about clothing. It's there because it's part of the hierarchy of needs. Okay, we have to have basic clothing. So if you're on your last t-shirt, your last pair of jeans, yes, you can include that in 4 walls. But most of us probably are beyond that. We're good. Giving and saving. Part of the top. We'll see why here in just a moment. All right, let's talk about giving benefits. I can't believe I actually did this, but I took an article from Huffington Post. And it says, the benefit of stress in check. It increases happiness at work. It lowers your risk of death. Stronger marriage. Increased mental health. I'll give HuffPo a little bit of credit for that. From health.com, giving lowers blood pressure, it reduces stress, gives you a longer life, and, quote, a mood boost. So all good things about giving. Here are a pile of references if you ever want to look up what the Bible says about giving and why it's good. Why it's good for you spiritually, emotionally, relationally. We don't have time to go through them all. There's just a ton of them. So, there's your references. All right, let's build our 4 walls. Go ahead and take your budget form. And what I want you to do is put your numbers on the page. Okay? So, we have got, on the side here, handily-dandily laid out for you. Giving and sharing at the top. Remember we said there's 3 purposes for money. We give some, we save some, we spend some. So, past average is in the first column here. You're going to write down the numbers you brought in today or the numbers you remembered and you came up with in your head. This is what you've done in the past, okay? And when you get there, I want you to total it up in this little box right here. Okay? Then you're going to come down to saving. What did you save last month? Or what do you think you saved last month? You're going to total it up here. Remember, we're just doing past average right now. Just doing past average column. Current month is coming. And then I want you to go to this third box where it says Tier 1, the 4 walls. Okay? We've got food, we've got housing, utilities, transportation, optional clothing. Fill in those numbers right now. Okay?
Do you consider like the money you put in like a 401k is part of your savings?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Not quite yet. Saving is going to be liquid assets that you have immediate access to without penalty.
Okay.
So like that's where we would fall short on a retirement plan, because most of us, if we tapped our retirement plans, we would get hit with a penalty, not only in taxes, but also the government would hit us with a 10% penalty because they do that kind of stuff. So we've got our 4 walls now covered. Now what's going to happen as part of your homework tonight is you're going to fill out the other column, the one that says current month. So don't do that just yet. Okay? We got to get everything kind of put in order first, and then you'll be better able to fill things out without going crazy in one area. All right, let's take a look at some Tier 1 guidelines. Now I left you a column that's open where you can talk about target percentages. These are targets, okay? These are not mandates. Moses did not come down from Mount Sinai with a tablet that said, "Thou shalt spend 10% on food." He just did not, okay? These are targets. So you might write these down on that far right column where it says target percent, just to give you a frame of reference, just to give you some ideas, okay? I put giving at the top for a reason, because it's so important. We just looked at 3 slides worth of reasons why giving is important, even if you're not a Christian. Who here would like a stronger marriage if you're already married? Who would like a stronger marriage? Anybody? Stronger marriage, bless you. Who here would like less stress in their life? Yes. Okay. So we're going to do the giving first. That's tippy top. Now, you may have noticed on the giving side we have 2 categories. We actually have 3 categories. We have tithes, we have offerings, and we have charitable giving. Okay? Now, tithes comes at the top. I believe that evangelical Christians have been given a special opportunity. I'm not going to argue the tithe right now. That's another day. That's another class. But I think 10% is a great target to start with. It's a great target. It's a good place to start. It's not going to say we finish there. That's why there's a plus behind it. As God allows, we will do more. That's different, though, from an offering. Okay? A tithe is what you bring in every week, if that's your 10%. An offering would be something like Dr. Cold shows up and says, "Hey, we need some Bibles for the Algoa prison. Would you consider giving to that this particular occasion?" That would be an offering above and beyond. Or if we do a special collection for Convoy of Hope to send down to the victims of the hurricanes, that would be an offering. Okay? The tithe is, historically, it's the top 10% off income. The word tithe literally means 1/10. You cannot give 5% and call it a tithe. Now, I'm not trying to guilt you. Okay, please understand that. Remember we talked last week, this is not a salvation issue. God doesn't love you anymore if you're a tither or if you're not a tither. He really doesn't. He doesn't love you anymore, he doesn't love you any less. He's crazy about you. He gave up his son to die for you, so he's definitely not going to be changing that at all. He can't. He already did it. But we have to get out of this idea that, okay, I tithe 2%. That's just factually incorrect. Tithe is a 10th. Offerings are anything outside of your regular giving. And then charitable gifts would be something else, like, say, in the community. Okay? That would be something else. That would be giving outside the church. Okay, like, let's say my family is very passionate about the Alzheimer's Association. We donate regularly to the Alzheimer's Association. That would be a charitable gift. Okay? That would be part of the plus. Saving, 10 to 15%. Food, 5 to 15%. Now, saving is going to also include retirement, just for reference. Housing, 10 to 15%, or rather 10 to 25%. This is going to really vary a lot. If you already own your house and it's paid off, obviously it's going to be way on the low side. If you're currently renting or if you have a mortgage, you got to watch out. If you get more than 25% of your income going into housing, you're going to be what we call house poor. You're going to have a house and it's going to eat you to death. It's going to eat you alive. Because not only do you have to pay that mortgage payment, those taxes, that insurance, you're also having to maintain the silly thing. And houses cost money. Anybody here own a house? They cost money, don't they? Wouldn't it be nice if you just bought the house and it just was good? 30-year mortgage or whatever, and by the time 30 years is gone, you hadn't spent another penny on it? Yeah, dream world. Not going to happen, right? So if you're going over 25%, I'm not saying you're doing something wrong. I'm just saying you're going to feel a pinch. Now, my family right now is over 40% because we are supercharged paying off our house fast. It's a decision we made. We chose to forego some things, and so we are like super gazelle intense right now, to steal a Dave Ramsey term. We are going crazy trying to pay it off fast with the goal of being done very soon. So we have chosen to be house poor and take the pinch that comes with it. And we're okay with that. Ask my wife, she might give you a different answer. She's okay with it 90% of the time. Yes, ma'am.
That article I brought in last week shows what the average, I think it's 41% that the average American is spending on housing today.
41%.
41%.
Yep, 41%. That's why a lot of people are hurting. That's why a lot of people are hurting. Utilities, 5 to 10%, again, a target. Transportation, 10 to 15%. Again, if you own your car and you're not paying payments, you're probably going to be on the low side. Optional clothing, between 2 to 7%. Now, I'm sorry, ladies. I know that 25th pair of shoes is very important. If you've got it in your budget, then okay, bump that up a bit. That's fine. Nothing saying you can't have 25 pairs of shoes, as long as everything else fits. Okay? Now, if you add up the math here, we're starting to get close to 100% already. Obviously, if you max out every category, that's going to really pinch you when we get to some more stuff here in a minute. So remember, these are target ranges. Some of you may be a lot higher. Some of you may be a lot lower. That's okay for now. We just want to kind of see, hey, if I'm getting to that 40% on housing, aha, I think I found my problem why I can't do other things, because that's clobbering me. It's clobbering me. Okay, Tier 2 expenses. Let's talk about those a little bit. Tier 2 meaning the next level. This is what we talked about. Very important to have versus things are just kind of nice to have. Very important versus just kind of nice to have. Okay? Tier 2 examples. We can talk about insurance, life insurance, health insurance, auto insurance. There's a reason why that's bold-faced. We'll get to that in just a minute. Clothing. Now, clothing shows up in Tier 2 as well. This is when you're past the optional clothing stage. This is when you want to dress nice and flashy like me. I'm just kidding. Please don't dress like me. Unless you want to. That's fine. So clothing, household furnishings. Anybody besides me have still got some of your college furniture? Anybody? Okay, I'm the only one. Oh, Sean's got some. Okay, great. Right. It's nice to have a table to eat off of, right? That's important, you know. Education. This could be college. This could be tuition. Perhaps some of you who have kids in SLS, or if you're going to private school, could be some tuition in there. Could be some books. Could be you going back to school. Maybe you've decided you want to take some classes. Maybe you want to read some books. Education. That would be a Tier 2 thing. Very important to keep up on that. But it's an optional thing. See, once we get into Tier 2, we start to talk about optional things. We don't absolutely have to have them. They're not four walls. Our world will not come crashing down if we don't have a new sleeper sofa. We'll be okay. You know, if you went through that stage in life where a milk crate was your chair, yeah, okay, you can get by. It's not fun, but you're not going to die. You'll be okay. You'll live to fight another day. Retirement savings is where Tier 2 comes in. Now, I wish I could probably just double star that one because that's like one of the most critical ones in Tier 2. Okay? But here's the thing. You got to be able to eat and pay your mortgage and keep your lights on before you start saving for retirement. If you get it the other way around, you'll be a millionaire living in a box. Okay? That's not a good thing. Communication devices. That was an expense we heard about earlier. How important are those becoming now? I would say more so than ever. I think the last generation, they had phones, right? But they didn't use them like we do today. Today they are, pretty much almost integral parts of our businesses, of our lives. So that is a very important. You need to make sure you can get some basic communication. Now, does that mean you have a cell phone with a $100 a month unlimited data plan? Or does that mean maybe you buy the less expensive phone and you limit yourself to maybe 1 gigabyte of data a month? Well, you got to fit that into your expenses. Child care applies to some, not to others. A maintenance fund. Maintenance fund. That would be for things like house repairs, car repairs, things that are going to come. Debt service. If you have debts you're paying on right now. Very important to keep those paid because there's a lot of problems if you don't. But again, it's not four walls. I want you eating. I want your heat on this winter before you pay the credit card company. Okay? Credit card collectors are annoying people. They will eat you up. Those same people who are smiling and happy to give you that 0% for 18 months, once you're late, they're not smiling anymore. They are bugging you to death. They are calling you names. They are calling you at inconvenient times of the day. They are messing with your brain. So they're going to stress you out a lot. But I want you eating, having a home in a warm place before you pay them. You can always hang up on them. If you get tired of them, just talk to you later. Now, there may be some other things. Anybody else think of some Tier 2 stuff maybe you think is very important? It's not just a nice to have, it's kind of very important. These are things like, if we don't have them today, we'll be okay. But if we don't have them for 2, 3, 4 months, we're going to start to have some problems. Okay, anybody else think of some Tier 2s we don't have up here? Some things maybe you brought from your budget?
There are some sinking funds for some things you might need to fix on your house that's not.
Okay.
Did you cover that?
Sinking funds. Excellent. Everything up here that is bold-faced can be potentially handled with a sinking fund, and we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, so maybe you have some things on your list that you need to plug in as a Tier 2, very important. I tried to leave a couple of spaces on the page so that you can put in some more Tier 2 things that maybe apply to you, but the rest of us just didn't think of for whatever reason. So, let's talk about insurance for just a second. And this is why insurance is a Tier 2 item. The law says we have to have health insurance. There's your Affordable Care Act. You got to have it. Auto insurance is required if you drive a car. If you do not drive a car, Uber, bus, carpool, you don't have to have it. Might be something to think about. We really need to have life insurance. Okay? Now, if you are without dependents, if you have nobody financially dependent on you, if you died tomorrow, they would be in trouble, then you can have a very low level of life insurance perhaps. Or if you are personally wealthy, you don't necessarily have to have life insurance. You can be what's called self-insured. I would say if your net worth is more than $1 million, you're probably okay to go without life insurance. Now, you might still want it, but you don't have to have it. If all your kids are grown and gone, and you're single, or you're just single and no kids grown and gone, you probably could get by with $10,000 to $20,000 worth of life insurance. That would cover any funeral expenses. You know, we're all going to have to cover those at some point, unless the good Lord brings us home early. All of us together as a group, that would be. But otherwise, just some basic life insurance. Now, how much? A good rule of thumb is somewhere around 8 to 10 times your income. If you make $40,000 a year, $400,000 would be good. You could probably get by with $350,000, but $400,000 would probably be not a bad thing. It's really cheap. If you buy a term life insurance policy for 10, 15, 20 years, that's usually somewhere less than $50 a month. It can be very inexpensive. Provide a lot of long-term financial security for your family. Long-term disability. Again, if you have no dependents, that might not be such a thing, but what long-term disability does is if you are injured, let's say, and you cannot do your job and earn your income, after a certain number of months, it will start kicking in about 60% of your salary. Again, you might need to talk to someone here in the congregation. We have Jeff Coles with Thrivent. He could probably tell you more about long-term insurance. It's just something that we don't discuss much. This is not short-term, okay? Some people's employers offer short-term disability. That's up to you if you want that or not. I personally think we can handle that by saving up enough to take care of, let's say we're off work for 2 or 3 months. That's a possibility. But if you're in a situation you don't have those savings yet, you might consider an inexpensive plan if that's available through your employer. Okay? Got to have these two. We really need to consider these two strongly. I would say also consider having identity theft insurance. Anybody get clobbered by that Equifax thing that just happened? Okay? Anybody ever had their card hacked, account stolen? Yeah, we've had it happen to us. Identity theft insurance, it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. More and more hackers are getting out there, getting our information. Identity theft is on the rise. It's going to happen to you probably at some point. It's also very inexpensive. I can tell you more about that later, but we're kind of getting onto the real optional types of insurance. I would also recommend considering liability insurance. We're in a very litigious society. People like to sue everybody for just about everything. You might consider having some of that. All right, so we're going to add the Tier 2 expenses real quick. Go ahead and just fill out your columns real quick here with the expenses you've had for the past few months. Let's go ahead. Later. Sorry, I keep saying class. It should be workshop. Okay, so we've got our targets there. And again, remember these are just targets. Some of you may not have hardly any expenses. If you are debt-free today, this obviously is a 0. So just keep that in mind that you go. These are just kind of targets. You know, if you're paying so much out in debts that everything else is suffering, then that's going to be a problem. You know, if you've got 50% on your debts, that's going to clobber the rest of your budget, and there's just no way you can win with those kind of numbers. Now, if you are at a point, once you've gone through all these things, and you just don't think you can make it fit, come see me offline. Call me offline. Email me offline. We'll work through it together. I won't look at your numbers unless you ask me to, okay? But we can work it together. All right, so we got some good stuff there now. Wants, tier 3 stuff. Free spirits playground. All right, free spirits. You're out there. These are the people who like to spend. My wife and I budget what we call mad money, or pocket money, some people call it. I would encourage you, unless your budget is just so incredibly tight that you cannot do it, budget yourself some mad money, some pocket money. It can be $10. It can literally be $10. But for the longest time, this is one of the things my wife and I did not do correctly. We did not give ourselves any pocket money. And we were just, whenever it was like Gail wanted to do this or I wanted to do that, it was kind of just, there was tension there. It's like, well, I want to spend well, you already spent, you know. And no, just plan for it as part of your budget, okay? Part of your tier 3 expenses, I think this would be one of your top tier 3 expenses. But again, you make of it what you will. We have a pretty modest pocket money expense. Now this is money where when you say, let's just say the Skinner family decides that each of them gets $50 a month for pocket money, or $100 or whatever. This is the money that's, once it's yours, you do with it whatever you want. You don't have to come back and say, oh, can I spend? No, it's yours. You know, you want to go to the movie, go to the Alamo Draft House, that's fine. Go ahead and do that, you know, as long as it's not family night or whatever. This is if I want to go, hang out with my friends money type stuff, right? This is you got the permission to spend it however you want within the moral confines of us as Christians. Okay, be careful with that. I didn't say spend it on anything you want to spend. Yeah. Some other examples of tier 3 might be vacations, a new car, extracurricular activities. Now, I know some people put this way up top. Their kids are in 3 different activities, and their house payment's late every month. Oh my goodness. We can't do that, guys. Extracurricular activities are wants. You know, unless Junior's planning on playing in the NFL, it's a want. It's not a need, and none of us know that that's going to happen. So I would encourage you to see this as a tier 3 want. Entertainment. Pets! Pets, uh-oh. Ruffle some feathers there, metaphorically speaking. Magic. Pets. Toys. These would be, collectibles. Toys, boats, motorcycles, all those things. Video game, 10 pair of shoes, cable TV, Netflix. You can probably think of some others, right? All sorts of things. Now, irregular expenses. Let's talk about those here for just a second. These are things that might come once per year. Let's think about things like federal and state income tax. A lot of us probably have taxes withheld out of checks, but some of you might be calculating income, say if you're drawing from a retirement fund, or say if you are you own your own business, and so you're getting paid, and you have to think about planning for that big tax payment. And we'll get to that more here in just a minute. Insurance premiums. A lot of companies will give you discounts if you pay a year in advance. So if you can save all that up 1 month at a time, take your yearly premium, divide it by 12, and just put that much money aside every month and then pay it, you might get a discount. That sure would be nice, wouldn't it? Christmas, birthdays, anniversary, right? They happen. They do happen, right? December 25th every year. It's coming. It's an irregular expense. You're going to plan for it on a monthly basis so that when the time comes, you can pay it out of pocket. Once per quarter, we might look at estimated income taxes. If you're a business owner, you probably have to pay estimated taxes. Membership dues, perhaps, if you're in a club of some sort. If you have, Genesis Health or something like that, maybe they bill you on a quarterly statement once per season. Cars, they want you to change your oil every 3,000 miles or every 3 months. That would be an example of a quarterly expense. Okay? Let's talk about sinking funds. Sinking funds are going to be one of 2 types of accounts. They're either going to be just a basic savings account or like a money market account. They are highly liquid. They are not investments. Okay? Please understand, not an investment. They're going to be just money you tuck aside. It's going to earn terrible interest. I'll tell you that right now. It's going to earn like 0.00001%. It's going to be embarrassing. It's probably going to lose value due to inflation. But you want to not put it in the stock market because the stock market goes down, your savings went away, oh, I need my savings, and they're gone. So keep them there. You're going to make monthly contributions to your sinking fund, and then yearly or quarterly withdrawals. So the money goes in every month, it comes out every so often, not every month. So all you need to do is calculate the total amount you need. Let's say you know that you have an expense that's $1,200. $1,200. Divide that by how many months in the year? 12. Means you need to set aside $100 per month, right? That's how much time you have to come up with that next time around. Now, Christmas is right around the corner, so we don't have a lot of time to plan. Maybe you could. Let's make our last activity here, Merry Christmas Sinking Fund. I want you to make a quick list on your piece of paper or just count them up in your head. How many people are you going to buy for this year? How many people are you going to buy Christmas gifts for this year? A reasonable expense. And that's obviously going to be different for everybody. Now, if you've got your calculator with you, or if you can do some just quick basic multiplication, sum it up. Sum it up. How much are you going to need? If you're like us and you've got 15 people and you plan on spending $100 on each of them, you're going to need $1,500, right? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. That's going to be your first sinking fund. I'm going to grab a spare sheet here real quick. So over here, in this box, on this form, we have sinking fund. You can go ahead and add Christmas underneath the word purpose. This is your first sinking fund. You're going to have a savings account or a money market account that you open up. And it's going to be your first sinking fund. So that's a good thing for you to do this week. Get in touch with your bank. I would recommend having a separate fund that is only for sinking funds. If you put it in your regular checking account, you're going to spend it on accident. Promise you. You'll spend it on accident. You'll be like, I got all this money, I'm just going to spend it. In the amount column, you're going to put down how much do I need to save every month to hit my goal. The goal is the final amount that you need by the end of the time. Obviously, Christmas is only 3 months away. You only got 3 months to save, and you might even be buying already. So this will be a good tool for maybe next year. But just let's start playing with this concept of a sinking fund. All right. So, quick homework assignment, and we're out of here. We're going to finish filling in our numbers. Okay? Now you're going to have a budget committee meeting and you're going to talk about your priorities. You said what you thought should be your top 5 priorities, and then you wrote down the numbers that were your actual priorities. I want you and your accountability partner to get together and talk about those. Are these the things we truly want to be our priorities? And if they're not lining up, how can we change these? Okay? And it's going to take some thinking. You might not figure that all out this week. You might need some time. That's okay. But just start thinking about that. You're going to add your Tier 3 wants on this side of the page. Okay? You're going to add all those things. And I want you to think about some quarterly and yearly expenses, things that sinking funds can be used for. Birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day, whatever it might be. Something you know is coming. Maybe it's 3 months out. Maybe it's 6 months out. Maybe it's 9 months out. Maybe it's 5 years out.
A new roof.
Car. Like, what about a car? Okay?
Yep.
Maybe you're thinking, I'd like my next car to be a $10,000 car. I have a car that's maybe got 36 months of life left in it. How much money do I need to tuck aside every month to buy that car, that $10,000 car? Now, I have a great lesson I just really would love to do, but we don't have time for it, obviously, but it's how to buy a $15,000 car for about $4,000 less than most people do it, and how to never be in debt for the rest of your life doing it. But we'll have to do that one. So,